Hello and welcome. Today's project is all about the pathways that lead to anxiety. You know, when you're out wherever you are in public, say, and you get that flood of anxiety, what is really happening? I want to talk about the cortical pathway that leads to anxiety, which I will divide into the two hemispheres and how each hemisphere can produce anxiety. But also I want to talk about the head honcho of anxiety, the amygdala, how that operates and why it operates via associations. Really important for your anxiety recovery, because you can work with these systems to desensitize yourself. Really important. Now, the left and right hemisphere of the brain, you can look at them as the left being order and the right being chaos. Now, the right hemisphere produces images. That's where you engage in your creative imaginations, the pictures that you see in your mind. And why is it chaos? Well, it's chaos because, say it's 12 a.m. and you hear strange noise in the other room, and your mind will generate a whole host of potential what ifs, right? Images of, could be a burglar, could be, a murderer, it could be the images of Freddy Krueger because you just watched a horror movie like 3 hours ago and now you're tense. And it's like when you go into a crawl space, right? The attic, your mind generates a whole host of potential threats like spiders and things that you don't care for, right? So that's chaos because there's an unlimited amount of potential threats that could occur. But the left hemisphere, what's interesting about that is it's order because of the fact that you can engage in rational self-talk to make sense of the situation. You can engage in that voice in your mind to figure out problems. The problem-solving side of the brain, right? Your left hemisphere, that's where you process words. The right hemisphere, chaos, images, right? So the left hemisphere, it can produce anxiety because, well, first of all, I just want to say that each hemisphere, it has a direct link to the amygdala, right? Your fight, flight, or freeze response, the alarm bell, your head honcho for the fear. So the left hemisphere, you can think your way into panic. Because if you're producing thoughts of, oh no, what if it is cancer? Oh no, what if I do faint? Those words can link right to the amygdala, and the amygdala is like, oh no, and then produce the anxiety response. And also, the left and hemisphere work together because you can think, what if I do faint? And then the right hemisphere can imagine yourself fainting, right? And that links to your anxiety response. But also, it doesn't have to be the words. It can also just be the images from your right hemisphere producing images of you fainting, or it could be images of the disease that you have, or it could be images of a family member dying, right? Because an ambulance could pass you by on the street, and then you get the thoughts from your left hemisphere saying, oh no, what if my dad is sick, or what if my child is in that ambulance? And then the right hemisphere, what it does is it produces a whole host of images of potential what ifs. Chaos emerges, swarming around your mind. And then the left hemisphere, obviously, you're not engaging in that part because you're engaging in the emotions the right hemisphere is producing, and then your anxiety response doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's imagined. So your amygdala is sounding the alarm because, oh, it's a threat, right? It's a threat. Because you are what you think, right? So if you're spending your day focusing on images that are producing negative emotions, you're just going to be running in that loop of a negative emotions. I'm more of a right hemisphere guy. I always imagined the worst case scenario. Some people, I notice that they have that voice that is producing more of the anxiety, like, oh no, what if, what if, what if. Me, it was both, but mostly it was the images that would send me into panic. So now, what can you do to work with these parts of the brains to lessen your anxiety? Before I talk about the amygdala, what can you do with your left hemisphere, your orderly part of the brain, to lessen your anxiety? Well, the first thing I recommend is that you start engaging in rational self-talk. There's this voice in your mind that you can use to add more order to the chaos that you're in, because anxiety sufferers are in disorder, right? Anxiety disorder, if you break it down, disorder, not enough order, too much chaos. So engage in rational self-talk when you feel anxious to add more order, right? So what if I faint? This is what I want you to think to yourself when you're in this anxiety response mode. So what if I have cancer? So what if I die, right? It's these things that when I used to suffer from anxiety, it was these things that I would cling to, and I was afraid of facing them. Like, I was so scared of fainting that when I started to engage in my left hemisphere with this rational self-talk, what I found was I was lessening my grip over that what if, right? Because I was reversing the what if. So this is an anxiety technique I recommend to you, is the reverse what if. What if I don't have cancer? So it's like a shift in your perspective. What if I don't faint right now? What if I don't have that panic attack? What if I don't have that kidney disease? What if I don't have that bladder infection? Whatever it is that you're clinging to, reversing the what if thoughts that your left hemisphere is producing will change your perspective and definitely shift your emotions. Definitely shift the state that you're currently in or you seem stuck in. So there's the reverse what if. There's also so what. Reducing that grip that you have over the thoughts that you're thinking, reducing that grip. So what if I have cancer? So you're basically facing the dragon of chaos, and you are facing your own mortality rather than trying to block it, trying to hide from that, right? And I guess a few of the self-talk that I would, like the lines that I would engage in when panic did arise was, if it kills me, let it kill me. The acceptance. Acceptance is really huge. I recommend a book called Letting Go by David R. Hawkins. He talks about this acceptance, this letting go, this disattachment from these thoughts that can keep you stuck in this anxiety. And this acceptance, what it allows you to do is to be more aware, the awareness of, I recognize that these thoughts that I'm thinking are coming from a part of me that I haven't dealt with, but also the shadow parts of myself. And I'll leave a link above and below to the shadow and what the shadow is all about, which is really important to understand, and recognizing where certain thoughts come from, and recognizing the dark parts of yourself, where those thoughts come from, and being aware of them rather than being reactive to them, because awareness is different from just being impulsively reactive, right? Just reacting, and then, I would get thoughts every day. I will get a thought today that will come from the shadow parts of myself, but I've trained myself to a point where I can recognize, hey, there's a thought from my shadow, the dark part, the part of myself where I could end up. I'm aware of it, and just being aware, the thought leaves and it doesn't come for the rest of the day, because I'm not giving the thought emotional energy. The more emotion you give that thought, the more it sticks around. So going back to the left hemisphere, engage in the reverse what ifs. Also, so what? Acceptance, right? So what? If I die, if it kills me, let it kill me. I want it to kill me. And when I started to have that perspective over my anxiety and the acceptance over, you know what? I want panic to happen to me today. And when I started to look at my anxiety that way, I want panic to happen today because I want to challenge myself today. My panic lessened and lessened because I was facing the dragon rather than running away from it. Also, the amygdala works by association. So if you run away from the environment, what happens is the amygdala is now linking the environment to threat because of your actions, right? It works by associations, mainly from your actions. So if you are avoiding situations, the dragon is growing because your amygdala is fearing that situation more and more, right? So then when you go back into a situation that you ran away from, what happens? You're going to get more anxiety because now you're going into a place where the dragon once lived. And when you go back into a place like that, you're going to feel the anxiety. It's going to be really bad, right? I see it all the time with my clients. They say they ran away from an environment. They don't want to go back there. And when they do go back there, their anxiety is worse. And now it's time to associate that environment with safety rather than dread. So this requires bravery. The more you place yourself in situations that make you feel tense and anxious, the more you grow in strength, in character. Because the amygdala is, when you are in that situation that's making you feel tense, the amygdala is trying to, it's basically saying to you, hey, get out, flee, right? That's the fear response. Fight, flight, get out of there, or freeze, right? So when you're in that environment, it's important that you stay there, because the more you stay there and you show the amygdala that you're not going to die, because it's thinking Brad is going to die here, get out. If I stay there and I ride the wave, that's the flooding technique, riding the wave of panic, and the anxiety moves from like a level 8, 9, or 10 to a level 4 or 5, it's a sign that you're making new associations, right? No pain, there's no gain. So if you're not willing to go and place yourself out in these situations, then how are you expecting your amygdala to make those new associations? How are you supposed to grow in character and become braver? Because once you become braver in that situation, all other situations that you feared before become less scary. That's amazing. Once you understand that, it's going to change yourself. Like, it's going to change the momentum of your anxiety recovery. Because once, I'll repeat that again because it's really important. Once you overcome a certain scenario, say going to the movie theater and dealing with anxiety, once you overcome that and desensitize yourself, all other areas, that other places and situations that used to make you feel anxious and panicky are going to be less anxiety producing, because you're making yourself into a more braver human being. Really, really important. And that's where I'm going to leave you on today's video. Thank you so much for being here. Remember to check out the Anxiety Project program, my program at unpluganxiety.com. Go check that out. I recommend it because it adds structure to someone suffering from anxiety who's in chaos. And I also provide you with the tools and techniques in that program to overcome your anxiety. And lastly, do not let anxiety define who you are. I will see you on the next video, or could be a podcast. Bye for now. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and that bell so that whenever a new video of mine appears, you will be one of the first to know. Namaste.